Hello and welcome to another Fountain Insight video. I'm delighted today to be joined by Konrad Sanders, CEO and lead strategist at The Creative Copywriter. Really excited to get into this. First of all, Konrad, how are you? Are you well?
I'm well. I'm well. Yeah, all things considered, I'm good. Very busy in this runway path up to Christmas, and but I'm excited to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I've wanted you to come on our video stuff for a while actually, because there's a particular methodology, of course, that you follow, which I think would be super valuable to the Fountain audience as well. So let's get into it straight away. Before we actually go through what the 13 content lens methodology is that the creative copywriter are religious about and live and breathe all of the time. And why would you follow this methodology? What's the outcome of actually following what you're about to say?
Yeah, good question. So the 13 lens methodology was an attempt to take kind of what has been brewing in my brain for many years and formalize it into a framework which you can use in a very practical sense to analyze and optimize your copy and content at every step of the funnel, to make it work harder for you. So it's to sharpen that copy and content into focus, so that essentially, if you're looking at the output here, you're increasing conversion rates at every step of the funnel, which, as you know, means a better and bigger kind of ROI on your spend at the top of the funnel. So it's a way of looking at copy and content when you're writing, when you're editing, when you're QAing, through these different perspectives, these different lenses, to make sure you're ticking all of the boxes and not focusing on any one too much and going through one lens too far. And another way to kind of look at this is perhaps ingredients in the secret sauce of writing powerful copy. Because the reason why I think that analogy works also is because when you're creating a sauce, when you're cooking a sauce, you need all of the ingredients. You need the spice, the salt, the sweetness, the acidity, etc. But you also need to balance them. So again, when I blitz through these lenses because of the short time frame that you've given me, I want people to remember that it's about balancing them as well. It's about focusing on each of these and getting the balance right.
What I love about this particular methodology, Konrad, is the fact that you have simplified it, which is so important, because I think the world of content, full stop, is a bit of a minefield. And not only are you helping people with that creative block side of things, because you're literally giving them some key pillars to follow. What I love about it in terms of the outcome as well is you're saying it's going to increase your ROI of content. And I think the stigma around content in general is that it's just fluffy marketing stuff, which is completely untrue, of course, and we know that. So anyway, without further ado, the 13 content lens methodology. Get ready, people. Konrad, fire away.
Okay, so in no particular order, we'll start with what we call the context lens. And what that is, I mean, context is king, and the context lens is essentially making sure that you understand and pay attention to the context in which your target prospects, your target readers consume that copy and or content. And by that, I essentially mean three things here. So, one, what stage of awareness are they at? Of the five stages of awareness, unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and most aware. Which are they at? And making sure that your copy and content is in tune with those. I'm not going to dive into that because that could be a whole 20 minutes in itself. Also, what where are they physically or digitally when they're consuming it? Are they driving past a billboard ad? Are they flicking through social quickly, or are they browsing long form content? You know, that will affect the kind of copy that you write. One of the things to pay attention to there is, are they, are they in a rush or not? That makes a difference. If they're in a rush, don't write a long ad, for example. And the third thing, what else is happening in their lives? What's the context in which they're consuming that content? Have they just had a baby? Have they just got married? Or a very good one, a very obvious one is COVID, right? COVID has changed everyone's lives. Many brands and companies did not change their comms and copy and marketing content. They just thought, oh, it's the same. Let's just pop up the same ads as we did last year, when the context is very much different. So they should be fine tuning that content and copy to the sensitivities of the situation. And that's the context lens.
Konrad, what I have to say at this point straight away is, because there's already been, like, that in itself is a video and we could dive so much deeper. I need to say to the Fountain audience now, don't worry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a link to all of our social posts with this video. I'm going to also add a link in the description. And of course, you're more than welcome to tweet the creative copywriter, to tweet Konrad, to tweet Fountain, and we will give you all of the details. So this is just super top level. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Konrad. Let's go with the second one.
That's fine. That's a good point. You'll see me rushing. You'll see me like getting heated as I go through this. But yeah, naturally, all of these lenses could have a whole conversation on them. So let's go to the goldfish lens, which I like the name of, the goldfish lens. I mean, essentially, the world is full of distractions, even more so than before. Your target prospects are essentially exposed to between 4,000 and 10,000 ads a day, supposedly. This was pre-COVID times. That's what the research shows. That's just ads. Think how many social posts they actually browse through. So think how many pieces of content or teasers to pieces of content. Think how many things they have on their to-do list. Think how many tabs they have open at any one time. So, you should be writing your copy and content to your target prospects as though they are goldfish, essentially, as though they can be distracted at any time. Don't give them the opportunity to be distracted. So without diving into the details here, keep your copy short, choppy, one thought per sentence, paragraphs chopped up, etc. And there are plenty of other things we can do there to make sure you're writing for goldfish.
Love it. Next.
Next. I'm looking at my phone here because, as you know, I usually do this with slides and I want to make sure I remember all of the 13 lenses myself. The Intrigue Lens, which is a very intriguing lens.
Yeah.
Essentially, humans are curious people by nature. I think it's probably one of the things that makes us human. We have a natural inclination to explore, want to understand and close information gaps, which is where science comes from, essentially. And so intrigue is a very powerful driver. And by that, I mean that, in the end of the day, when it comes to something like advertising or marketing, what you're often trying to do is you've got a very tough task ahead of you. You're usually trying to divert someone's attention away from what they were doing, right? No one is looking to find ads online. They're not walking down the street to go and check out the billboard ads, etc., etc. So, you've got this tough task and you need powerful psychological effects and techniques, and one of them is arousing curiosity. So we have this thing called the curiosity gap, where you tease them with a bit of information and then you leave a gap and their brains just feel absolutely compelled to close that gap, much like we're doing with this session here, right? We're teasing you with these top level parts of the 13 lenses, but not giving you everything, and hopefully it means you'll want more. And just to quickly add to that, clickbait, which has a bad reputation, they use the intrigue lens, they use the curiosity gap. Perhaps they go a bit too far with it, but you can certainly learn things from the clickbait industry.
Yeah. I think so long as you're giving value, Konrad, I think this is a great point, right? So long as you're actually giving value, but you're clickbaiting people into the process, I actually kind of see that as okay. And I'm intrigued to see what our audience think of that. And feel free to leave a comment down below, wherever you're watching on social media or YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever, what you think about that. But in my opinion, without the intrigue lens, without drawing them in, then actually you're not actually going to get any attention on your content, right? So you could create the most engaging, valuable thing ever, but without intrigue, are they even going to read that? But that's a complete other discussion. So I agree, Konrad, with that lens particularly. So important to apply that. Anyway, Let's move on to the next one.
You like that lens. You like that one. I know. Don't get me into a conversation on each of these,
No,
because it will just eat
next.
up the whole time. Right. This is one of my favorite lenses, the outside in lens. So I've been talking for many years about how I feel one of the biggest mistakes that both entrepreneurs and marketers make is in their approach to decision making, which I call inside out thinking. And by that, I mean making decisions based on assumptions rather than based on insights, data, and demand. For example, I've got an idea for a product, let's take it to market. Here you go. And the business just flops. Or I know what's going to be a good marketing campaign, and, you know, because I think it's a good idea, let's spend loads of money on it. The problem is, as you know, you're a sample of one. Even if you're in a marketing team, you might be a sample of 10. You're definitely not. That's not a good sample size if you're targeting thousands of people who probably aren't marketers in most cases. So to really take this, the opposite approach, which I call outside in thinking, it's all about being data led, insight led, demand led. And when it comes to copy and content, you can do this through surveys, buyer interviews, exit polls, keyword research, obviously really important for PPC and for organic, focus groups, implicit data collection by going into Quora and picking out what we call voice of customer data. And that's a really cool thing you can do. Not only will your marketing message kind of and campaigns do better and resonate more, you can actually pick out language from this data, which we call voice of customer data. You can weave it into your headlines, into your copy, and you know that it is probably going to convert better because you have literally taken it from the mouths of the type of people that you're trying to convert.
I love that lens as well, Konrad, for the reason that is the probably actually similar to the fountain methodology, the way that we do things, forecasting forwards, data-driven decisions, taking the risk out of marketing. This is fountain language that you're speaking now, and it's great that you can actually apply this into the fluffy content side of things. This actually just shows you evidence, like you can go out and forecast forwards how things are going to perform based on those things that you've mentioned there. So that preach, Konrad, I think that's absolutely brilliant, and one that definitely resonates with Fountain Partnership. Moving on to the next one.
That's why we're such good friends, right? Our agencies. That's why, for that very reason. Right, next lens. Next up for you guys is the zigzag lens. And by this, I mean differentiation. Again, there's a sea of saturation out there. And I think a lot of marketers think, oh, if you just get the formulas right, that's going to be fine. If we plan our funnels and create our content, even according to the outside in lens, that's enough. But the problem is you've probably got hundreds, if not thousands of other competitors out there doing exactly the same thing, who also have created a blog on the same topics, covering the same thing. So what is going to make you stand out in an ever increasingly saturated digital world? And that's where zigging while the industry zags is important. And to do so, you need to do competitor analysis, right? You need to understand your competitors, the landscape. You need to identify commonalities across the board, which, to be honest, are very easy because, to be honest, in most industries, it's just copycats and sound alikes. Most companies just look at the front runner and go, I want to be like them. Let's copy their tone and design style, etc., rather than carefully trying to differentiate and strategically, so that your content and your copy is different and compellingly unique, and people remember you and they subscribe to you and they share your content and they go, oh yeah, those guys, the guy with the hat, TCC, that powerful green logo, etc., that tone of voice. So again, it's about strategically differentiating while still remaining relevant to your target audience. Don't just come up with a differentiation technique which isn't going to resonate with your target prospects. Again, it's about balance.
But I agreed, Konrad, on that massively. And I see so many companies just being sheep, full stop. They never, ever look at this lens. They never look at this lens because they don't want to be different, because that's seen as bad. They don't realize that being different actually sometimes intentionally, is so insanely powerful. And sometimes, as you brilliantly said there, zigging whilst others are zagging could actually be something that just skyrockets your business onto the next level. We've seen this time after time. And what I would say, as someone that engages with your personal content, Konrad, is that you live and breathe this, right? One of the things that we chuckle about all the time on a micro level, whilst everyone on LinkedIn is talking corporate jargon all of the time, it's a bit of a bland space. Up comes Konrad with a GIF. Boom. Difference. Hat. Difference. Engaging. Super
Exactly.
important. Love
We
it.
definitely practice what we preach there, and I know we want to move on to the next lens. But what I will say is that a lot of marketers think that it's dangerous to differentiate from the norm in their industry, and I would argue, in fact, because they're like, oh, it's worked for them, let's copy them. It's dangerous to divert away. In fact, it's dangerous just to copy, because just to copy them, if you're not the front runner, if you're the leader, if you're Apple, fine, you've already got the audience. If you're copying them, then you just get washed up in a sea of 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 sameness,
Love it.
essentially.
Love it. So true.
Next,
Yeah.
next up, you ready for the next one? So next one on my list, again in no particular order, is the funnel lens. We've called it the funnel lens. We kind of toyed between calling it the funnel lens or the conversion lens. And what it really is about here is again making sure that as a copywriter, a content writer, or an agency, you understand that those words are part of a journey, are part of a funnel. At the end of the day, you're trying to take prospects on a journey down a funnel towards conversion and even beyond conversion, like Fountain. For us, we've got a 5-part funnel, and it kind of goes beyond just the sale. It also looks at post-sale care, right? Increasing the size of that account, because customer lifetime value, as you guys know, is one of the key metrics needed here. So the point here is to make sure, even if it's a top funnel blog post that needs to be educational and value driven generally, and not salesy, there should still be an element somewhere that should be trying to sell the next step, as Marcus likes to say, and me too, that sells the next step in that journey. So if there's a top funnel article, is there a call to action to some kind of mid funnel gated piece of content? Is there a pop up? And when it comes to that copy there, that's where you pull out all the tricks, the conversion copywriting tricks, like social proof, like sense of urgency, sense of scarcity, positioning yourself as an authority, all of these psychological tricks that will make people trust you enough to click through and go to that next step in the funnel. So the funnel lens is all about pushing them towards that end goal and keeping the end goal in sight.
Again, I really like that one, Konrad. And the reason why I like that one is I think that a lot of businesses, to be honest, in my own personal opinion, are almost scared of using a CTA, a call to action. They're scared of wanting to look salesy. But at the end of the day, if you're not, once you've earned your audience's trust with value adding content, and you know that you're going to get that, tell them to do something, push them somewhere, because they're going to be confused if not. And they're going to be like, well, why did you push this ad in front of me for? So again, insanely powerful. Totally agree with everything you've said. On to the next one.
Next one. All right, the real talk lens. So real talk. Basically, this is perhaps the oldest lesson in the copywriting guidebook, if there were such a thing, which is conversational copy works. It worked in ads 100 years ago, newspaper articles, the ones that worked and had proven through data to work were written in a conversational tone. It doesn't matter if it's B2C or B2B. People buy from people, right? In the end of the day. So we're social beings. And if we're reading content or copy that is conversational and makes you feel like you're sitting down and having a conversation with someone, you're more likely to be immersed in that, to be kind of entranced, and then for it to essentially do what it's supposed to do, whatever that next step is, as we were saying when talking about the funnel lens. So, use the word you and your, talk in first person, ask questions, but not too many questions in a row that you seem like a car salesman from the 90s, and just and be conversational. You can be conversational and professional. It doesn't need to be quirky, but conversational copy works, and it deserved its own lens.
Totally agreed. Give me more.
More, another lens?
Yes, please, sir.
Let's go for it. The Primal brain lens, right? This is a good one. So, um, hopefully there aren't any neuroscientists watching, but in simplistic terms, there are two parts to our brain. There's the primal part, which is in charge of essentially instincts and emotions, and then there's the more recently evolved rational part of the brain, which governs, rational thought and critical thinking, etc. Now, while we are rational beings, Chris, us, particularly me and you, very smart, intelligent people, the fact is that the primal part of the brain, some people refer to as the kind of reptilian part of the brain, it just acts faster, right? If there's a tiger coming at you, you don't start going, I wonder, let me weigh up the pros and cons of getting eaten alive. Let me measure how sharp that tooth is. You don't. Your instinct kicks in and you run. The same with emotions; they work quicker for you. So if you can bring that into your copy, especially when you're trying to grab attention, emotions, emotional benefits, using words that kind of imagine you're talking to imagine you're trying to get the attention of a reptile, right? It would be like loud pops and bangs and sizzles and trying to scare them. So using things like the fear factor, fear is a powerful driver, and many other techniques that I probably don't have time to go into right now.
No, and again, people, we are going to divulge in more detail by giving you a link through to the Creative Copywriter where you can see absolutely all of the details on this stuff. And believe me, it's insanely powerful because I've read it myself. And what I would say, just very quickly on that, Konrad, just to agree with you before we move on to the next one, so many people create ads, create copy, write social, write blogs based on logical stuff, logical benefits, but they don't place enough value on emotional. And again, it's almost seen as potentially cringy or cheap, but they're not realizing that, as you've said there, it's primal, right? Let's get emotional. I think that's a really fair statement to make. Ads copy in general needs to get more emotional to create fast attraction. Is that a fair statement before we move on to
I completely agree. And even if it's B2B high consideration decision, which generally requires more logic and multiple stakeholders, you can still use the emotion and the instinct in that initial line that's going to grab attention. Even the fact that in advertising they've said sex sells, right? Again, that is a primal instinct, and there's a reason why it grabs attention, and that's just one of them. Fear, love, nostalgia, these are strong emotional kind of triggers that you can definitely use to get attention and to give emotional benefits to your product or service.
An important box to tick. Speaking of boxes to tick,
important one.
More lenses to tick. What's the next one?
Next one on my list, which is kind of like it doesn't apply everywhere. This is the one that doesn't apply everywhere. It's the SEO lens, and obviously this is the lens that applies to anything that is searchable by the search engines. When you're writing, let's say, email copy, you wouldn't apply this lens. But the SEO lens is making sure that you are not just writing for your target audience, you're also writing for the search engines, because if it's copy on a landing page, a blog post, anything that's public, then you want to bring organic traffic to it. Ideally, that's like the holy grail of traffic, really, because once you're up there, it just keeps coming. You don't need to pay for it; it's there. So there are multiple things, again, when it comes to SEO, like meta descriptions, putting the keyword in the title, etc., that you can do, and it's another box to tick.
And it's amazing how many businesses make it complicated for people to find them on many levels, by the way, not just ads, social posts as well. Make it easy for your audience to find you. Very, very, very valuable point there, Konrad. How many? I've actually lost track. How many lenses are we through?
I don't know. I actually don't know. They're not numbered on my list, so we just need to keep going, and then we'll know when we reach the end.
Give me more then.
Right, next one is the hierarchy lens. This is about the kind of structure to a piece of content. In the end of the day, I talked about taking people on a journey with a longer kind of funnel, but also you're taking them on a journey when reading a piece of content. And there are certain, structural elements that you should bear in mind and that you should stick to. A blog post, for example, we've got kind of best practices for how to structure a blog post. How to start with that intrigue, curiosity, to tease them into it after
Mm.
the header, obviously, and then have subheaders, etc., conclusion, or takeaways at the end. When it comes to a landing page, we have different copywriting frameworks. One of them being PASS, which is problem, agitation, solution. So this is a proven framework that you can use to write copy that is more likely to convert at the end of it, because you're hitting them with the problem, they get sucked in, you agitate the problem, and then you go, boom, here's a solution, and then there's the call to action. So we've got frameworks when it comes to hierarchies, and again, it's just another consideration. It's another ingredient in that recipe
Love it.
of the secret sauce that we're creating.
Love it. The salt and pepper lens. Maybe we should rename that one.
I like it. Yeah.
What's next? Come on, give me more value.
Next is the brand lens. So the brand lens, branding, one of the keys of branding is consistency, right? So when it comes to, this is just something you have to bear in mind. If you're writing for a company, the tone needs to be in line with the tone elsewhere, right? Because branding, in my view, is personifying a company. I said before, people buy from people. And that's why, in my opinion, brand strategy exists, and why
Mm.
you give values to a company, and you give personality traits to a company, and you give a tone of voice. All of those things are personifications of that company. So if I started speaking in a French accent for the remaining 5 minutes of this call, you'd think, hang on, what's going on here? That's a bit odd, right? Maybe I don't trust this Konrad guy. Like, who is he? And in the same vein, when you're creating content copy for various bits of collateral, keep it in tune with that core brand voice and keep those values in mind as well.
Absolutely agree. What's next?
Next is the value lens. So I talked about value. This is about, I feel like so much content out there just scratches the surface of the topic. And these days, people are really looking for true, tangible value. All right. You read an article, don't make it just another 500-word, 5 reasons why, blah, 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 blah. And they just, okay, I could have read that anyway. I knew that already. It's about going above and beyond and really thinking, using the outside in lens to understand what they're looking for, what value they need, and really providing thorough value, like tangible facts, specifics, and
Mm.
stats, and everything like that. Or when it comes to copy, sell the benefits that will be truly valuable to them. And it's something to bear in mind.
Yeah, again, agreed. And my add on to that is people people are almost scared about just giving the audience the value up front. But I think actually that is the best way to build brand trust. More importantly, just give your audience what they want. Don't mess around. You don't have to funnel everyone in all the time. Sometimes it's important to just give them what they want. And in terms of building the long-term currency of your brand or business, that's a really good way of building trust. Love that one, Konrad. How many are we through? Have we got
Totally
more?
agree. We're on to the last one.
Oh,
Number 13. How are we doing for time?
we're great. It's so valuable, so it doesn't really matter what the time
Yeah,
is.
it's all good. So the last one is called the Creative Spark Lens. And this is where creativity comes in. And again, I think that you can be writing copy and thinking about conversion and thinking about SEO and thinking about the target prospect, and it can end up being decent copy, but not really strong, really powerful, compelling
Mm.
copy. And one way to up the ante and to amplify that is to sprinkle in the creativity. And there are techniques you can use, poetic techniques you can use, like alliteration, even, to just make it a little bit sexier or a little bit more interesting
Mm.
without going too far, into what I will say: clarity over cleverness, and clarity even over creativity is important. So that probably loops back to the goldfish lens at the beginning, but sprinkling a bit of creativity to make it more interesting, and so that they keep reading.
Konrad, you've done incredibly well to get that down to just under half an hour now. Thank you so much for sharing that value. And I cannot thank you enough. I'm sure the Fountain audience will engage with you, will send you tweets, and will click on the link to view more, and actually then look back at this video, but then clarify it in the actual copy. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
No worries. We said 10 minutes and I only went, 3 times, but that's it was the best I could do. We crammed it in there.
It's 2020. These things happen, right? And a massive thank you to everyone that's watching and listening to this right now around the world on whatever platform you're at. If you've seen this on Twitter, give it a retweet. If you're watching this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. If you're watching it on Facebook or LinkedIn, leave us a comment, and feel free at all times to tweet us. We are at Fountain Team. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks again, Konrad.